Okay, welcome back to another episode of Run Mountain Peaks, episode 20, and we have a wide array of topics today. So we have a lot of different things to cover. We're going to go through kind of a deep dive recovery talk. It's the new year. You probably got goals, getting after it, upping your training. If you're upping your training, you should probably up your recovery. So I'll go through all the things that I think about when it comes to recovery. I'm going to do a bunch of deer hunting FAQs. So a lot of questions that I get from maybe like non-hunters or runners or hikers that share the same space, but maybe don't know some things about hunting. So I'll do kind of a deep dive into that. Talk a little bit about discipline. I have a sledding story I'm going to share. We'll do a little bit of Patriots talk. The Peak Snow Devil Snowshoe race happened last weekend. We'll touch on that briefly. I have a No Country for Old Men quote and reflection that hit me mid-mountain run last week, which I kind of I was like, oh my gosh, I think I know what that scene meant. So we'll talk about that. I messed up on a grid fact last week, so I have to right that wrong. I can't believe I messed that up. And then maybe we'll do a little bit of ski season talk because skiers are having a winter to remember. Yeah, so that's what we've got today. I was gonna go up north today, but I ended up doing a more local mountain run, so we got out for a couple hours today. It's getting pretty cold. It's getting pretty windy as the day is going on. I didn't look at the weather for today or for the weather for this weekend, so I don't know, but it feels like it's gonna be really cold and really windy. But I have not seen or heard anything about the weather this weekend. But we'll see how it turns out. I mean, right now I'm all bundled up. But that's that's what we have today. No, obviously it's gonna be super cold this weekend. Yeah, the temps in the mountains this weekend are frigid. I was looking for the next couple days, -30s, -40s, -50 wind chill on all of the peaks. So if you are braving that weather, be careful, goggle up, don't have any skin exposed. And if you are hitting the treadmill or indoor bike or whatever it may be, I'll be there with you. I'm gonna be grinding some treadmill miles this weekend. I've gotten out in the crazy temps before, and it's just sometimes it can be a hassle. And so I got a good mountain running today. I'll bundle up for a day or two, and then I'll get back out there hopefully like Sunday. So I'm kind of being a baby this weekend, dodging the weather. But if you're getting out there, good for you. You're braver than me. But be prepared because it is freezing. I looked at the weather and it was going to be -10 in Lincoln in the morning. Real feel tomorrow. So the real feel on the peaks is going to be like probably -20. I don't know. Crazy cold. But everyone's talking about it, so it's not out of the blue here. But all right, so actually, one thing quick before we dive into the topics today, I wanted to do a 60-second training lesson for you all. Everybody knows in the winter you should probably be doing strength training that you've been putting off, trying to get stronger when you're staying indoors more. And I think weight training is awesome. You should be doing that in the winter. But also, I think all mountain runners should at least do one block of a weighted Stairmaster, maybe month. So some sort of training block. I think it's a different form of weight training, but it's just as important. Getting stronger, going up steep inclines is extremely important for mountain running, and it's probably a stimulus that you have not had before. So one, that just means you're going to be able to make quick gains, like quick strength gains on it. And you can do this as a muscular endurance workout. Really, really heavy pack, do 30, 45, 60 minutes on the stairs. Or I just got finished the block doing shorter reps running on the stairs. So I was wearing about 10% of my body weight, doing 1-minute intervals, running up the Stairmaster, and it's a great stimulus. It's going to get you stronger, and it's probably something you shouldn't be doing. So if you haven't been doing it, give it a try, especially in the winter. It's kind of fun. It's a different workout, and you can really make some good gains on your uphill running. If you have any questions, send me an email at andrew@runmountainpeaks.com. And if you are interested in run coaching, go to runmountainpeaks.com. All right. Now we're going to get into the topics. So what do we want to start with here? I guess I'll just start with the sledding story. Some of these are quicker. We're going to start with the Peak Snow Devil Snowshoe race. So this is a race in Pittsfield, Vermont. Snowshoe race. There's a 10K, half marathon, 100K, and 100-mile. And it's been a long-standing race. I've heard things about it for a long time. It's been going on for, I think, over a decade. It's kind of a classic Vermont winter, grueling. It's got a good amount of vert in it, and you're wearing snowshoes usually. So that is the race. It happened last weekend. I'm scouring the web. I'm trying to find results from the race, but I don't know if they didn't post it yet or the Spartan. It's one of the Spartan races. So the Spartan races, I feel like, are always kind of harder maybe to track because they have kind of their whole big brand or conglomerate going. So they just have a hub for all these races and websites. They have all these events. And so maybe they keep it behind, you have to do it to see the results. So I couldn't find the results. So I don't have anything to report on for you guys this week. But if everything works out, I will be interviewing somebody who ran the marathon at that race, who I think is going to be an awesome interview. I'm super excited to meet him and get his story on the race and just his story in general. So no results this week, but stay tuned for an interview coming soon. That was the Peak Snow Devil Snowshoe race recap. Next up, we will do the sledding story next. So a little bit of nostalgia throwback. Went sledding. Me and Jocelyn go sledding this past weekend. It's snowy. I feel like in the winter, there's not as many, I like to get out for little walks or walks in the woods, do little things when I have some free time. But in the winter, it's a little bit harder to kind of convince yourself to get out. So we had a little idea. My parents had boogie boards at the house, and I was over there. I was like, let's take these down a sled hill. Because I don't ski or snowboard, so I don't really get that. Excitement of going down a hill fast. So we pick up the big boogie boards, and I'm like, I don't even know if this is going to work. It's kind of fluffy snow, but who knows? I know this hill in Amherst we used to go to as a kid. I won't call it out, but it's like you go through a little culvert, you get to the other side, big sledding hill. I'm like, maybe if a couple people have been there, it'll be all packed down and we can go down a couple times. So we show up there. I don't know when this was last weekend, and the hill is packed. I mean, there's at least 50 kids on this hill. 50 kids. There's parents at the top. Everyone is sledding on this hill. I'm like, wow, okay, we were not the first ones to think of this. And we get up to the top, and we're thinking, what are we doing here? This is just kind of silly, but we're still gonna do it. And we get up to the top, and there was one guy actually kind of like our age. It didn't seem like it was his kid, but maybe it could have been his kid, obviously. But this kid kind of goes down, and we had just got to the top. Kid goes down the sledding hill, and he hits this bump, this little jump that was made. The sled goes one way, the kid goes the other way, somersaulting in the air, and the guy is just like, oh, whoa. He was like, he likes the jumps, but I didn't think he knew there was a jump on that one. And then you're just seeing all these kids. Half of the kids are just wiping out this hill is super steep, super fast. I mean, everyone has different kinds of sleds. So some of them are like very stable tubes, and then some of them are just these tiny little things. But kids wiping out, tumbling, going everywhere. There was this one kid. He had this really aerodynamic, small, kind of compact sled, and he fit in it really good. And he just went down it, kind of like the luge or the bobsled in the Olympics. He just went down it all tucked up aerodynamic, and he was making zero facial expressions, just ripping down the hill. He would get up, walk to the top, and do it again, just like robotic sledding behavior. So we ended up doing like we did a few, maybe 3 or 4 rips down. It was pretty fun. We got going, but actually the big boogie boards actually did work pretty good on the sledding hill. I will say that, but then we were like, all right, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. So that was a good like throwback. If you haven't gone sledding in a while, see what you can scrap up. Piece of plastics, piece of good cardboard, something like that. And hit one sledding hill this winter. And this is coming from a non-skier, non-snowboarder. So probably everyone's like, I'm not going sledding. I'm just going to go skiing like an adult, which I should do, but I didn't. So that was the sledding story. What else we got here? Oh, the grid fact mess up. Oh my gosh, how did I mess this up? I think I said in the podcast last week, I brought out my phone because I had it written down so I didn't mess it up, and I still messed it up. So the fact was, what was the most finished grid peak? And I thought it was like, ooh, I'm really jazzing up this podcast. I'm doing some research. I'm getting prepped. I'm going to throw it to a guest a little question. And I had the fact wrong. And nobody called me out on it, but I messed it up. I don't know how I messed it up, but I did. So I think in the last week I said it was Cannon, then Jefferson, then Moose as the most finished grid peak. The actual list, sorry, mother, the actual list was Jefferson was number 1, Mooselock was number 2, and then Cannon was not the one, it was 3. So, I mean, adding up numbers, my brain sometimes will just make insane mistakes. I think it can be very good a lot of the times, but sometimes it just like mess it up. So I messed that up. I'm owning up to it. Hopefully righting the wrong. I was going to make that a little clip, but then I couldn't because I was like, this is just wrong. So I didn't make that clip. I made a different clip. But that was a grid fact mess up. And I just wanted to clarify the other thing in the list because I'm like, oh, did I have this wrong too? South Kinsman being one of the peaks that had not had a grid finish on it. That was actually correct. North Kinsman has had 2 grid finishes, but South Kinsman has had 0. So that fact, which I was like, oh, I think I messed that up, that was actually correct, and I cannot comprehend how that is possible. I cannot comprehend how that's possible. I guess I could have looked at the months, but I guess somebody just grabbed South Kinsman if they were doing like a Mount Wolf or coming on the Kinsman Ridge Trail from the other way. But that is very strange because not a lot of people would, hey, I'm going to go do South Kinsman only today from Mount Wolf. But, so that is the grid fact clarification. When I saw that I had messed that fact up, I started sweating. And I'm like, I let the people down. This is horrible. I have misinformation out there. I've said this before, and I will keep saying this. I am going to make mistakes on this podcast. I am going to say stupid things on this podcast. But as long as I own up to it and just keep rolling, then it's all good. So that was the last thing here. And before we get into the 2 big topics, the recovery talk and the deer hunting FAQs, I have one more little quick thing that I'm going to do. And this was I on the Kinsmans? Yeah, I was on the Kinsmans last weekend. This was mid-Kinsman Ridge. I love the Kinsmans. The weather wasn't great, but so there wasn't a ton of views, but I do love the Kinsmans. And I'm mid-stride on the Kinsmans. And what did I do? I had my little throw-over jacket on me, and I pulled that out of my pack. And when I throw that over myself in the winter, I usually just put it over my pack, so you can't really access the pack pockets as good. And it looks like I'm like not even wearing a pack, but so I threw that on, and I went to grab a little bottle of maple syrup in my pack pocket, and I was going to put that in my pants pocket so it was more accessible. And I go to throw it in my pants pocket, but the one pocket I was going to put it in, I had just my key in it, and I was like, no, do not. If you have a key, your car key that you need to drive your vehicle away from, do not put anything else with that key, because if you go to grab that something else, you're gonna probably get the key. It's going to fall out in the snow. It's going to be mayhem. I experienced that once. I didn't drop the key. I'm not going to name names. My mother dropped the key in the snow, but I'm not going to name names. Would not do that to her. So you don't want to do that. And so I put it in my other pocket. And it came to my head because I have a lot of movie quotes, just like quotes or little scenes or stuff in my head. I feel like that just come out when I'm running or just in general in life. But I said, don't put it in your pocket. Do not put it in your pocket. And that came to me. And that line is from No Country for Old Men, which No Country for Old Men, I used to watch that movie before some of my ultras. I don't know why. It's just kind of like a chilling Western murder kind of movie. So I don't know why I would always watch that. But I really do like that movie. It's one of those movies like Goodfellas, Casino, or something like that's just on all the time on TV. And if it's on, you got to watch it. But No Country for Old Men. It's the scene when Anton Chigurh walks into the gas station after I think he killed that guy with all the chickens and then needed gas or something. And he walks in there and he goes to buy something. I'm pretty sure the counter guy was like, oh, it'll be 10 cents. He's like, okay. And Anton doesn't say anything. But then the guy behind the counter is like, y'all getting any rain up your way? And for some reason, this pisses Anton off, and he goes, what is it any business of yours? And he's like, I didn't mean anything by it. He's like, and this is like the whole scene in the premise of the movie. Anton is like death, and if you see him, you're gonna die or something. And then he just goes in on this gas station worker. He's like, you live in that house out back here? He's like, yeah, my wife's family grew up here. And he's like, spits out his water. He goes, you inherited it? He's like, I don't know if you want to, if that's the way you want to put it. And he's like, there's no other way to put it. That's how it is. And it's just the scene is getting like more and more tense. And this guy, it's the middle of nowhere. It's just like, who is this guy? He's being really weird, being really kind of aggressive, but in this calm, weird, scary manner. And then he's like, and then this is like the famous line, like, how much have you ever lost on a coin toss? He goes, I don't know, mister. He's like, how much have you lost? He's like, see this coin? Call it. He's like, well, I got to know what we're calling it for. He's like, call it. I'm not going to call it if I don't know what we're calling it. He's like, if I don't know what I'm calling it for, what do I have to lose? He's like, you have everything to lose. Call it. And it's like getting tense. Like, is this guy going to kill me over this coin toss? He's like, sir, we got to close. We got to close. He was like, why? What time do you close? He's like, now. We close now. He's like, call it. He's like, I'm not going to call it. He's like, call it. And then he's like, all right. If I have to call it, heads then. And he flips it up. And it's like very tense. And it comes down heads. And he goes, well done. And the guy's like, weight off of my shoulder. And it's just like a very tense scene. And then the guy takes it and he puts it in his pocket. And he goes, don't put it in your pocket. He's like, what? Why? He's like, that's your lucky quarter. Don't just put it in your pocket. And the guy's like, well, where should I put it? Anywhere not in your pocket. He's like, because then it will just get mixed in with the rest of the quarters and it will just be a regular quarter. He goes, which it is. And then walks out. And that's the scene. So, so I had to do pieces of that. So the way that I think I always thought about the scene was obviously, oh my God, this guy got lucky. If it was tails, he was just going to kill him. So that's like the scary part of the scene, and everybody kind of gets that. But I always was like thinking of, why did he say that's your lucky quarter? Don't put it in your pocket. I guess it makes sense. Like, you kind of just won your life, but don't put it in your pocket. But I kind of was like, why was he such a stickler about putting it in his pocket? Like, where should he put it? And what finally dawned on me on the Kinsmans, don't put it in your pocket. I think the quarter obviously represents his life. It represents his life. And I think Anton, obviously he just won his life in a lottery. It's like, that's one thing in general. You only live one life. Nobody knows what can happen. You gotta live it now, which is obviously one thing. But also, I think him not putting it in your pocket is him realizing that he has one life. If you put the quarter, you just won your life, dude. If you just put your life in your pocket and forget about that this is your one life, you're going to just get mixed in with all the rest of the people just going through life, going through the motions, doing whatever. This is your one life. Don't forget it. That's the metaphor of don't put it in your pocket. And so everybody listening, you only have one life. And everyone hears these quotes and hears these things and thinks like, no, I understand that. But don't put it away. Don't put it off on, I'll go after something I want to do later, do whatever. Never forget that. You got to live your life now and just don't sock it in like most people, you know? If you got something you want to go after, you got to go after it now, because I feel like just, the whole, it's like society. We're all just like in this kind of churning thing where it's like you go to work, you get paid, what's that? You go to work, you get paid, you eat food, you go to bed, you go to sleep. You wake up, you go to work, you eat food, you go to bed, you go to sleep. You wake up, and it's like, don't get in that cycle. It's so easy to say, I can do this, this, or this down the line. You have to remember, this is your one life. You never know when it's going to be up, and you got to just take chances and do your opportunity and do everything you want to do now. Don't wait 5, 10, 20 years. Because I think a lot of people, like, they say lots of old people, they get to the end of life, what did you regret? It's just like not realizing, not going after something, not realizing the time that I have. Basically, this is a warning. Don't put the quarter in your pocket. Don't wake up in 20 years and blink, it's 20 years later, and you didn't do things you want to do. Keep the quarter out. I don't know. Where should we hold our quarters? Should we bring the quarters in our running vests? Maybe that's a thing. If you have a lucky quarter, start bringing it in your running vest. Purposely put it in every day so you don't forget it. Okay. That was the No Country for Old Men talk. So I think we covered all of the small things, and we will get into the big two topics today that I wanted to cover. And hold on. Yeah, so we'll start with the recovery talk. Like I said, it's the new year. People have new plans, new ambitions, and I think the new year is a great time to get that kind of rejuvenation. Maybe get rid of some things or take some things off your plate, feel a little bit lighter, have that motivation, start going after your goals for this year. But in training, that usually means putting on big races and starting to train more. And I think whenever you're training more, one, you have to increase your load and your training volume in a smart manner so you don't get hurt. But also, if you are going to step up your training, you really need to step up your recovery. So what do I think the most important recovery things? This is like my recovery hierarchy for endurance training, for ultra running. And there's a lot of things you see online, a lot of products, a lot of supplements, strategies, and all these things, and studies that go with it. There's so much information out there. But I think the basics do 90% of the work when it comes to recovery. And the number one thing, which you heard it 1,000 times, sleep is your number one recovery tool. It is legitimately a superpower. When you're sleeping, it is the human superpower. And everybody knows the importance of sleep. You recover when you're resting and when you're sleeping. So if you're training but not sleeping, you're basically stressing your body but not allowing it to build back stronger. And that training that you're doing and not recovering from is just like you're just kind of wasting your time. Maybe you're doing some mental training, but a lot of it is kind of just wasting effort and energy. If you're not recovering from training, it is unproductive. And you need, like, your body's entire healing process happens with good sleep. So everybody knows this, but I don't think people put the importance on sleep that they should. If you are not sleeping 9 or 10 hours every day, or getting like 8 hours of sleep plus a little nap every single day, right? I would say 30 minutes of sleep extra is going to be better than 30 minutes of anything else you can do for recovery. So think about what that means. If you just carve out time in your day, 30 minutes more to sleep more, that is better than stretching, foam rolling, supplements, all of these recovery tools that people try to sell you online. All you have to do is sleep a little bit more. And I think people just don't take that serious. And there are so many protocols and things that you can do to get better sleep that are a little bit time consuming or maybe a hassle to some people, but it really just comes down to make more time to sleep. Think about how much time you spend on your phone. If you turn the phone off a half hour earlier at night and just go to bed, that is going to do wonders for you in recovery. So if you're serious about training, you got a big ultra that you want to do or big races or whatever it is this year, you're up in your training volume and you are just sleeping the same, you are essentially, and you're not sleeping that 8, 9, 10 hours every single night. Not every single night. 6 out of 7 nights a week, I would say. You're not sacrificing as much as you could be. And I don't even know if it's a huge sacrifice. It takes a little bit of awareness, but it's not a huge sacrifice. Most people like to sleep. I have a hard time sleeping sometimes, but a lot of people like to sleep. Take sleep seriously. So that's the number one thing that I think a lot of people probably don't do or don't place enough importance on that you should start doing. So that is my number one recovery tip. Number two, and this is probably a close second, especially for endurance training, is eating enough food / staying hydrated. And we'll put more emphasis on the food because everybody knows you should stay hydrated. Every cell in your body uses water. You need it in the recovery process. Stay hydrated, drink water. Make sure you're getting sodium, electrolytes. Eating enough, though, is so important because we talk about sleep being the time where your body rebuilds itself. To rebuild itself, you need the building blocks of the macronutrients in food. The nutrients in food is what your body uses to grow yourself back up. And if you're not providing enough of it, again, you're just going to be under recovering. And that extra training that you're doing is probably just harming you, or you're not gaining from it as much as you could be. So sleep enough and eat enough. Because I've said this before, endurance training is just stressing your body and then letting it recover. Stressing your body, letting it recover. Over and over and over again. That's all it is. And so if your training's great but your recovery's not great, you're just leaving gains on the table. So get enough sleep and eat enough food. How do you know if you're eating enough food? If you want to be really, really good about it, really serious about it, track your food. Eat the same food every day or the same amount of calories. And if you're maintaining weight, you're good. If you feel like you have energy for most of your runs, you're good. But if you don't have energy, you're losing weight that you don't need to be losing, or you're starting to get injured a lot or all these things, or you're gaining weight, you're feeling, you're eating too much food, all of these things you have to adjust to get in that sweet spot of eating enough food to fuel your training. And aside from just being able to recover more, and aside from just food being the building blocks, if you're under fueling, one, that is just making you more injury prone, and two, bone stress injuries, which are the worst running injuries that set you back so much, those, like the number one reason people develop bone stress injuries, one of the top reasons is under fueling. So you're just risking, you're probably not recovering like you should, and you're risking your body, which could set you back, which is never going to help you get to your goals. So take eating seriously, eat majority whole foods, good foods, lots of nutrients. But then if you need to add on a little bit of processed foods on top of everything to make sure you're meeting your calorie goals and your calorie needs, do that. So those are probably the biggest two. The next thing that I want to talk about, managing your stress. So like I said, training, you stress the body and then you recover. Your body's central nervous system does not distinguish physical, emotional, and mental stress from each other. If you are having a lot of stress in like mental stress in life, oh my gosh, we have a dog, we have a we have a potential second guest on the podcast, a dog, but he doesn't see me. Um okay, what was I saying? We're going to keep that part in. Um Yeah, if you have a ton of stress outside of training, that is going to drain your system and drain your central nervous system, because ultra running, it's you have to do a lot of miles, long days, long runs, long races, and it does take a toll on your nervous system. And if you have a lot of mental stress from work, from life, if you have a lot of emotional stress for whatever reason, relationships, etc., those things are going to take away from that bucket that you have of total stress in your body. And if you're trying to train super hard, but you also have a ton of other stress in your life, it's probably just going to burn you out, make you more prone to injury, and your body's going to be in a state where it can't recover from your training as well as it could if all those areas in your life were feeling better. So this is another thing when it comes to recovery. Managing your stress in your life is a huge thing. I always tell people on your rest day, I think most people should take a rest day every week. That should be your day to tackle the BS that life throws at you. You got appointments, you got errands to run, you got things to do, something breaks, yada, yada, yada. If you got to return, or all of these things that are kind of hassles and put more stress in your day, take care of those things on your rest day so that the rest of the week you have more time to train and not have to worry about doing extra things running around, because it does take a lot out of you. If you're running around to appointments, doing all these things in a day, that's probably a half hour, 2 hours that you could be doing some sort of training endurance thing. But you're not, and it's just adding stress for no reason. So the best that you can, try to find balance in your life outside of training, and that's going to allow you to train more without burning out, crashing out, going down that route. Next up, I would say the fourth thing, active recovery to just get blood flow to your body and specifically your legs. A 5 to 10 minute walk just to circulate that blood around is probably going to be better for you than most things that you're thinking of as recovery. We talked about how do you repair yourself. It's food, it's sleep, and what is the shuttles that get these nutrients to your muscles to do this recovery? It is your blood. That's what carries oxygen, carries nutrients, carries water, all of these things to your tissues, and you need blood in your those areas that you have strained to recover. And so the best way to do this is just go for a quick walk, a quick bike ride, but like where your heart rate is not even in the 100. It's low. It's not even like a training thing at all. Just enough to get that blood flow going. I even say if you have an errand to run, go to the store, you walk around the store for a handful of minutes, boom, that is part of recovery. It's just getting more blood flow to the inflamed tissues to repair itself quicker. And I really do believe that some light walks, a little bit of light stretching, anything like that to get to the muscles, beautiful. It's awesome. If you can do 1 or 2 of those a day, I think that's going to aid your recovery a ton. And so that was my fourth thing. So that brings me to my fifth hierarchy of recovery, importance is all of those recovery tools, commercial recovery tools, commercial recovery products. I think massages, massage guns, Normatec boots, red light therapy, cryotherapy, all of these things, yes, they can help. Yes, people can make studies that say they're going to give you X amount recovery gains. Yes, I do believe like if you could do all of those things like a professional athlete, you would recover a lot better. But if you are not doing the first 4 things, it's I think a waste of your time. I think you're leaving recovery on the table. Oh, I'm going to buy a pair of Normatex boots, but I sleep 6 hours every night. Like, you don't need the boots. You definitely don't need the boots. Foam rolling. I think these things can be helpful. Some people don't believe in foam rolling. Some people do. Some people don't believe in red light therapy, ice baths. Some people do. The jury's out. There's lots of different studies, all these different things. Some of them help, some of them don't. Whatever you think. But if you're not doing the first four things, sleeping, eating enough, managing your stress, and then doing light recovery, getting blood flow to your impaired muscles, your legs, or any spot where you're having a little bit of an injury or something that you want to take extra care of, if you're not doing those four things, you should not be looking into buying any of those recovery tools or even spending the time. If you're foam rolling for a half hour a day, I think just go to bed a half hour earlier or meal prep good food so you're never down like trying to scrap together some food where you got to get some fast food or something like that. Those four things, the basics, are the most important, and you're going to get 90+% of your recovery from those things. So make sure you're doing those right. It really, really does help, especially when you're building volume. And it's hard. Again, I know it's hard to be perfect on all of these things. And this is actually a thing I want to talk about, discipline, which I'll do an example of. But it is really worth it, and you have to do these things if you want to achieve your goals. If you want to achieve your maximum potential, I should say. Everyone has different goals, but I really think these things are important. So, an example, like I said, I have a little ankle going on. I'm trying to figure it out. I won't get into it too in depth, but I have some ankle exercises I've been doing, and 2 days of the last week, I didn't do them. Kind of tired, end of the day. I gotta go, and I just didn't end up doing them. And do I think that that's gonna set me back a ton? No, I really don't think it is. I had a good run today. Ankle was fine, but it is just something when it comes to discipline. If you have big goals, big ambitions, and that's what like a lot of ultra runners do, just because the races in general are huge, you need to do all of these habits and continuously do them, whether you feel like doing them or not. And that's just like discipline. And the way that I think about it, like, I don't know why I had this written down, but I'll just talk about it. Somebody like a Tom Brady, when you hear, or like a LeBron James, the longevity in the sport, all the things that they were doing, if you hear their routines and what they did for decades straight, Tom Brady was like, I just heard something recently. Obviously, he's the GOAT, so it's like, and maybe we'll do Patriots talk after this. He's the GOAT, but it's like, he had his, if you believe in the TV12, he was like, I've been taking multivitamins every single day, never miss a day for 20 years. I've been doing all this stretching, longevity, all of these things for my entire career every day. You hear about LeBron James when he first got into the league, he was stretching and all these people are like, what is this guy doing? There are people who are willing to do those annoying things or the things that just take a little bit of energy, but it's hard to really do every single day. There are people out there willing to do that every single day. And those are like the greats that you see in any aspect, any sport, any whatever. And so for me, like last week, I trained really good. I did lots of ankle exercise. I ate good. I did all of these things. It was a productive, good week of training. But there are things that I could have done a little bit more that I didn't. And that's something that you have to kind of own up to and think to yourself, am I doing everything I could be doing? And be honest with yourself. And I think that's where discipline comes in for a lot of these things. A lot of these recovery things that I talked about. Getting off your phone early, going to bed early. It's just little things where, just so you know, you can never cheat yourself. You can lie to everybody in the world. You can say whatever you want, but you cannot lie to yourself. And there are people who are willing to do all those things and never lie to themselves and say, I am doing everything I can, and they actually do everything they can. And so that was just like a thing on discipline. A lot of this stuff just takes a little bit of discipline. You got to hold yourself accountable, and you just got to do it because it pays off. And there are people out there doing more than you. Even if you're like, no, I trained really good this week. I trained really hard, did everything I could. There's somebody who is a little bit more disciplined, who worked a little bit harder than you out there, And that's just in the back of your mind. Everyone's got different goals, but if you got a goal that you're trying to win a race or do whatever, just think, all right, if there's probably someone else who did those 2 ankle exercises who's going to recover a little bit faster and is going to have one extra good week of training or good speed workout when I wasn't quite ready. And if you do that a few times a month, a dozen times every 20, 30 times a year, think about that compounded over 10 years. That's how people get great. So don't lie to yourself. Be disciplined and go after it. Okay. Oh, the Patriots talk. We'll do the Patriots talk quick. I grew up in New England, and I grew up. My mom was a mega sports fan. She grew up in Boston, watches all the sports. So we always watched all the sports. Grew up watching the Red Sox win the World Series. I got some pictures of me with like 20 Red Sox hats on all different ways with sweatshirts and all this stuff when I was younger. When they first won the World Series, I've been here for the Celtics. Obviously, the Patriots run. Bruins. I grew up around Boston sports, and obviously a lot of us are a little bit privileged. But I wouldn't call myself a mega New England fan. Like, I'm not over the moon. I don't watch every game. I don't keep track of it a ton. I like watching sports. I wouldn't say I watch a ton of it. I honestly listen to more Part of My Take podcasts and like people talking about sports than I do actually watching sports, because I do really love sports. I think sports are the best, but I'm not a mega fan. But when they get into the playoffs, I'll start watching. So I started watching. I'm on the bandwagon, whatever you call it. If they lose, I'm not going to be too upset about it, but when they're winning, it's so cool. And the thing that has just struck me so hard is Drake. Is it Drake May, or Drake May? I don't know how you say it, but this dude has New England on his back right now. Rejuvenates the city, the Patriots, in 1 year. Well, obviously last year, he was on the team, but I mean, you can just feel it around New England. It is insane what is happening, and everyone's talking about it, so I'm not going to just like go crazy on it, but I've been watching a few games, and it has just been blowing my mind, the things. So what was one of the games? Yeah, I just watched a few games this year, and every game, like, May's just making these crazy passes, looking insane, putting the beat down on teams, and it's just every time he makes a crazy throw, you're like, oh my God, people love this guy. Everyone is on this guy's team. You see the Instagram DMs that Drake May. There's like one thing where it's like, yeah, what your girl's worried about your DMs being versus what it actually is, and it's just some guy like last year sending Drake May DMs of "keep your head up, King" or something like that. Yeah, what he's doing for the city is incredible, and I mean, I hope we just blow out the Broncos. Who knows with Stidham in there and everyone thinks the Pats should win, but if we go to a Super Bowl, oh my God. I mean, people are already freaking out, but it's fun to watch. I love watching the games. Everyone's in on it. So go Pats. Go Drake May. Drake May. Don't know which one it is. It's been fun to watch. It has been fun to watch. Okay, that was the Patriots talk, and we're going to end this on some deer hunting FAQs. So I've talked about it in a few of the podcasts so far. And so I'll just again give my like quick background. I started hunting and fishing when I was younger, and I started deer hunting maybe when I was 13, 14, like started going out with my dad a little bit. I think I shot my first deer when I was 14 or 15, and then since then I think I've got about 30 deer since then, in about 15 years, so averaging a little over 2 deer every year, like I talked about. Fully a meat hunter, love venison. I eat a ton of venison. That's like the staple of my diet. But I have like a good amount of experience. Like there's lots of people that are much more experienced hunters, but I've been doing it for a while and I have a lot of experience. And a lot of people in my life know that. And they always ask me questions because I think people don't know much about it. And I think it's interesting the crossover between trail runners and hikers and hunters, because a lot of the time they're sharing the same space, but the two don't really know anything about each other. And I don't think sometimes neither group likes the other counterpart. Maybe sometimes, let's say. Um, but so I'm gonna do a little bit of educational deer hunting talk. So if you're a runner or a hiker, stay tuned, because I think we're gonna kind of premise it around kind of like basic information that is, I think, of interest to you. So the first thing I have is, where can you hunt? Rules vary by state, but in New Hampshire's a little bit specific. So I'll stay in New Hampshire, and most of New England is like this. If a piece of woods is not posted, like with those yellow no trespassing signs, or doesn't have no hunting rules or signs along it, it is legal for people to go on and hunt and recreate on it, which is a little bit different than a lot of the states, in the Midwest or whatever. There's much more public land. And the reason is there's not a lot of public land around here. There's, every town has some parcels of land in the White Mountain National Forest. It's all public land. But a lot of the non-national forest or conservation land, it's just private. And so that's kind of one of the reasons. So anywhere that you can run and hike and you don't see no hunting signs, people can hunt there. So that's one thing to know. There are some rules about being away from roads and dwellings. If like a dwelling, a building, you have to be about 100 yards away, which is not that far, to be honest. And trails, unless a town has a certain bylaw on it, Conservation Commission has a certain bylaw, usually people can hunt along trails, which is not, we'll kind of talk about that. But there's no boundaries for recreational trails. There are boundaries for like roads, but it's only like 30 feet off of a road that you have to get. So, that's 10 yards, which is not so I think people, a lot of the woods is legal to hunt, which is something to know. If you're running in an area, people can hunt there. And so when is the hunting season? There are different, species that you can hunt for, but I think deer hunting is the most popular. So deer hunting is from mid-September in New Hampshire to mid-December. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know that." Most of that time is bow hunting only. So for a month and a half, September to the end of October is bow only, and a lot less people bow hunt. The woods are a lot quieter. Obviously, you don't hear bows, and a lot less people do it. So you don't really see a ton of people. You don't have to wear orange in a lot of states during bow season. So that's one thing where you don't even see hunters, because if they're wearing camo, they're far in the woods. You probably don't see them as easily, but they are out there. And then for deer hunting, the regular firearm season is usually just most of November. We have a muzzleloader season, which is like a one-shot gun. They're like the primitive muzzleloaders you got to put around them with black powder. They're a lot better. The technology is a lot better now, so they shoot very good. But they're just, you have one shot that you're going to have to reload. So it's not like just people shooting up the woods as much. There's a season for that. And then it's regular gun season during November. And then into December a little bit. And then it ends. And that's it. In southern New Hampshire and populated areas, there is a restriction that you cannot use a rifle. So where I grew up, you can't use a rifle in a lot of areas because the woods are so small. There's not like big woods up north. So you have to use either a shotgun or a muzzleloader. And then the other thing I want to touch on, when is hunting season? There is a turkey season in the fall, but also in the spring. That happens during May. So a lot of people don't know that in May, there are hunters in the woods. And turkey hunting is a lot more moving around action. You don't wear camo because turkeys can actually see orange. So you don't want to wear orange. So lots of hunters are out there just in camo. And they're moving around. They're calling to animals. Turkeys are very vocal, gobbling, hens, and all these things. So there is also danger of people in the woods there. So you have to be aware during that time of the year as well. And like, where can you hunt? I personally, it's hard because in southern New Hampshire, all of the pieces of woods that are like conservation areas, town owned, that you can kind of hike or run on, have lots of trails on. They are also the only woods in the area. So like that's the only place that most people can go and hunt. So there are more popular areas than others, and I think hunting around a popular area with lots of runners and trail hikers, I don't do it, and I really try not to do it. With a bow, it's a little bit different because you can't really shoot a bow far, but with a gun, that goes a lot farther. I think you have to be much more cautious, and I think 90% of hunters are, but I think some hunters aren't. And so, it takes both parties to be aware of these things to stay safe. But that is just something to be aware of. And I think the difficult thing about it is in southern New Hampshire, and we'll talk about the conservation a little bit, because hunting is the best form of conservation. It's not just controlling animal populations, but it's also collecting data on the animal populations and funding the research to preserve wildlife and recreation areas as well. So it's hunters are one of the biggest conservationists. Some people may not believe that, but as far as the money that they spend towards conservation, it's the main funding source for all of these wildlife programs. So they definitely are doing that. But you have to hunt animal populations to keep them in check, or they just take over landscapes. They can destroy vegetation. They mess up the ecological functions of an area. You have more deer kills, more deer interfering with humans. They affect crops, farming, all of these things. So you have to keep them in control. And so you need people to hunt in these areas. And that's why they allow bow hunting. That's why they give extra tags in these areas. But they have to be able to basically intermingle with other trail users. And I think it's really just a thing of education and making sure everyone is going about it smart. So if it is a hunting season and you are running or hiking around during dusk, I think you should be wearing orange all the time, because a lot of hunters do that, but a lot of people don't. Every hunter should be aware of their target, but I think it is much easier. And to be honest, if you hear something in the woods but you can't see it yet, a lot of the time, if a hunter will raise their gun, and those are situations where you never want to run into somebody who has a gun raised at you. Even if this safety is on, and as soon as they see you, they put it down. It is nerve-wracking, and so I understand when people are uncomfortable with hunters in the woods, but in some senses they need to be out there. They can be out there, and it's just being aware. And I think all hunters, if you know there is a trail around, you should not be in view or close to the trail. I think that is another priority of a hunter, and I think a lot of people do that. One, because that's just not where the deer are going to be, or like animals are going to be a lot of the times. But two, it's just like smart, and you don't want to put anyone in an uncomfortable situation. That's my worst fear. When I go out there, I don't like seeing people, because one, I just don't want to make them uncomfortable in the woods. As soon as I see somebody in the woods, like anywhere like that, because a lot of times you have to take a hiking trail in and then you go into a different piece of the woods. I always like put the gun straight at the ground, try to say hi, like let them know that I'm not a bad person, because in the woods, even when I see a hunter, I am immediately like, all right, I need to get the vibe of this person. What is he doing with this gun? What is he doing right now? Because guns are crazy things. I'm not a super big gun person. I don't really know a lot about guns. I only shoot the guns to get them sighted in and shoot, when I go hunting. I think they're kind of a hassle, and they're just not like one of my favorite things, to be honest, to deal with. But anytime I go to shoot a gun, once a year during hunting season, they are lethal weapons, and they need to be taken serious. And that is obviously on the hunter. And so if you're intimidated or whatever, I totally understand, but just see how they're acting. And honestly, for me, if I'm running on a trail and I see a hunter, I just immediately usually just turn around and let them be and go, unless they're like walking on the trail and they're clearly like leaving or something. So I think it takes two to tango to like make a nice cohesive relationship. But everyone uses recreation areas for different things, so you have to just learn how to kind of cohabitate. And I think it's just education on both parts. Deer hunting for conservation, I talked about this a little bit. I think there's lots of people who do a much better job speaking about this, so I won't go too into depth. But Steven Ranella is a good person. He's a very good person. He speaks very well. He's very well educated. Go check out his views on kind of conservation as a whole. And another thing too that I kind of wanted to touch on. I don't know how long have we been going. 56. Yeah, I'll go on it quick. I am a meat hunter, like I said. And I don't, not that I don't understand. I definitely understand some people are just in it for trophy hunting. But the one thing I do want to say is, because I think on the outside, a lot of people who are okay with hunting but don't like the trophy hunting. Trophy hunting is actually, Steve Ranella can talk better about this. It is one of the other best forms of conservation because those people, first off, spend the most money. They tend to spend the most amounts of money. And when they're going out, a lot of the time, the people that are going out kind of doing the trophy hunting thing or like really going after like the biggest animals, they are dedicated and spend way more time than the average person. They actually respect and enjoy the animal more than anyone could even fathom. Like, they put in so much energy, so much time to kill those animals. You have to just put in a lot more money and effort. And they're like the backbone of the funding side of conservation and allowing other animals to mature and grow and only taking that mature animal from the woods that is no longer like the peak breeding for a population. And so yeah, people do a better job of talking about this stuff, but don't knock trophy hunting until you're educated on actually what it funds, because no matter the reason out there, a lot of these wildlife programs need money, and it's one of the best ways that they get money. So that was all the thing I'll say there. Next question I have, how many deer can you shoot? And again, this is a crazy question because when I tell people like, oh, I shot 5 deer last year, they're like, how can you even do that? Is that even legal? And they're, first off, every state, you can get different tags in every state, and every state has different rules. But in New England, you're an hour from, in New Hampshire, you're an hour from Mass, you're an hour from Maine, you're an hour from Vermont. So you can theoretically get tags in all of those states, which is a cool opportunity that other states don't have. But it also, yeah, it's just a little bit unique, but it's just how it runs for us. Non-residents have to pay a lot more money than residents, but in different states, but it is a way to get a lot of different tags. And then if you bow hunt, you usually get extra tags. And then different zones that have more deer that need the conservation, you can get different doe tags or buck tags. So there's lots of different tags that you can get, and all of these tags are wildlife biologists prescribe them per areas, per states, per methods to conserve deer populations and other populations. So if you see someone shooting a lot of deer, usually it's totally legal. What do you do with a deer after you shoot it? This is a good question. I'll give you like a quick rundown. When you first shoot a deer, you have to field dress it, which is like removing some of the guts from the animal, kind of like going into the carcass. And you're allowed to leave that stuff in the woods. And I think it's not a ton of stuff. It's just like the stomach and the entrails and like the bladder and that kind of thing. But it is interesting because you leave that stuff in the woods and it's kind of like a mess everywhere. Most of the time you go back there in a day or two, and coyotes or birds or whatever, foxes, anything in the area, scavengers, clean it up, and you would never know that there was a deer field dressed right there, which is kind of crazy. So it's not wasting any of the meat or anything. It just goes back into the ecosystem. So that's the first thing you do. And then, you got to drag it out, which is honestly the biggest exercise that a lot of hunters get. But dragging a deer out, of the woods, especially if you're a couple miles back in, is a haul. I mean, it's obviously like a very rewarding thing to do, but it definitely, I'm thankful that I'm more in shape now doing endurance running because it makes the drags a lot easier, but they're still hard. But then you got to bring it home and you have to check it in. Usually you have to bring it into a check station. You can do it online too nowadays, but you check it in, which gives all the data about the deer, where you got it, how you got it, all of these things to the state. And then you have to butcher it. A lot of people send it to a butcher, and there's lots of places that will do kind of a, deer butchering during the fall. But since I've been hunting, we always butcher it at home. And so I think this is like the biggest thing that I take pride in hunting. And I've said this before, I think it's a favorite activity that I do with my father because my dad's pretty much taught me how to do all the stuff. And we are like a factory butchering deer now. Like, we know exactly what to do. It's just like a nice thing in the fall. We're just boom, 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 boom. When one person needs help, unspoken, the other person just comes over, holds the thing or whatever, and then they go back to it. If one person's stuck on something, they don't want to do it anymore, the other person comes in. So we have a good system down. We've done a ton of deer. And butchering a deer yourself, when you bring it to a butcher, I don't want to, some butchers are great, I'm sure, but sometimes they throw it in with other people's deer. You don't know how the other person treated that deer, if they left it in their truck bed for a little bit. You don't know about the meat. Is this my deer? Is this somebody else's deer? It's a whole thing. But when we bring it home and do it ourselves, just in the garage, you see the deer, you see the whole process from start to finish. If I'm going to kill an animal for meat, I should be able to obviously I feel like, kill the animal, take care of it, but then see the whole process through, and give respect to the animal and like give it I take care of the meat like it's gold. So we bring it home, we butcher it up, we take any of the fat, any of the tendons, any of this stuff, the gunk that you can get like in a lot of factory farming. I'm not a huge factory farming obviously fan. I do eat beef sometimes. Like, I wish I could just eat 100% grass-fed beef all the time. I've been on kicks where I do if I need beef or like a burger or whatever. I go out for a burger or something, but sometimes it's just not practical if you don't have oodles of money. But yeah, there's some stuff in that meat that I just don't agree with in the things that they do. It's just they don't live in a good environment. But the meat of like a deer in the wild, it lived a beautiful life in nature, eating all just natural foods. I clean it up so there's no gross stuff in it. It's just pure, beautiful, dark red, real, no fat meat. And it's the best. And when you get a huge tub of 20, 40, 60, 80 pounds of just beautiful venison, it's just really rewarding. And then when I eat it all year round, it's super rewarding. So that's one thing. And a lot of people, like, I have tried venison. You put some seasoning on it. Like, I always have people try ground venison to start. Put some seasoning on it. Put it in a taco. Some people like it better because it doesn't have all that fatty, gross stuff that beef can have or other kind of meats can have. So don't knock it till you try it. Yeah, and it's just really good to meat. So that's pretty much the process of what happens when you get a deer. And then the last thing I will talk about, which I think is important, and I've talked about this recently, and I don't want to put a negative aspect on some hunters. Like, most hunters are awesome people. I love talking to them. There's just a small amount of people that you see beer cans in the woods. They're the way they talk about hunting, you just can't really mess with, or I don't mess with. There are some people like that for sure, but the majority are not like that. And for me, and this is kind of a thing I've thought about a lot, when I got into running, and I'm kind of like a person like that I'm going to talk about now. I dedicate so much time and energy to running every single day, hours training, eating right, recovery, all of these things. And you can't even fathom how much some people train, and dedicate and just like love getting out. There are hunters and woodsmen that spend that exact same amount of energy in the woods or on their hunting goals which is so insane to think about. That if you, let's say you run for, on average, you run for an hour or two every single day, there is a hunter that spends his time walking, scouting, looking for animals, trying to find animals for an hour or two every single day, even if they have a full-time job, even if whatever. There are people that will spend all of hunting season, dark to dark, in the woods hunting, um, doing that stuff. And I just think it is so insane. Those people are, if you talk to them, they talk about hunting like I talk about endurance training, or talk about training or ultra running. I'll listen to podcasts. I actually enjoy listening to podcasts where people will spend 2 hours talking about a certain situation. If you're hunting deer on a hillside with a leeward wind, with thick cover, how do those deer adjust when the wind switches? People will spend 2 hours talking about that, theorizing. What have I seen? What have I noticed in all of my time and my years out there? It's like they talk about it like it's a science. The greatest woodsmen are, there's a Killian Jornet of woodsmen where they walk into a woods and they know what kind of animals have been there, what kind of things have happened, like to an extent that I couldn't even tell you guys. And those people, I think, are some of the coolest people out there, because it's it is so insane. And I think, a lot of like the podcasting and videos, there's a lot of videos now out there, so you can listen to these people. But I think the dedication of hunting and woodsmanship is something that at least know is out there, and appreciate if you ever meet somebody who is like that. And for me, I think I've realized in life, you only get maybe a few things that you can become a master in. And I think I've chosen, I want that to be mountain running, ultra running. And then I think when I turn maybe 40, 10 years from now, a dozen years from now, I would like to just spend all of my time in the woods and see what I can learn about creatures in the habitat, and try to become a master woodsman. But I literally realize that I cannot do that right now while I'm training how I'm training, because it takes so much time and dedication that I just don't have available. So it's kind of cool. I wanted to give that a shout out to all the dedicated hunters and woodsmen. And the last note that I do have is, and I said this kind of like about bow hunting, and I said about um uh being out there with other hunters in the woods. If you see a hunter in the woods, especially if they have a bow, because bow hunting is so hard, most people fail at it, a lot of people don't succeed. And if someone is bow hunting, they're either wicked smart and really good hunters, or they just love getting out in the woods. If you see a hunter, even with a gun and you're comfortable with it, or a bow, go and talk to them. Ask them, oh, did you see anything? How's your season going? Have you seen anything? And they will probably tell you stories that will open your eyes and be like, wow, this person is not just like a murderer. This person they know the woods almost like I know X trails, or I know X mountains. And they'll tell you things that they didn't, that you did not know. So if you see somebody, strike up a conversation, a hunter in the woods, say hi, make them feel good. Because when I talk to someone, I always try to talk to somebody. When someone's like, oh, cool, and they ask me about it, it's like a huge relief off my shoulders, and I'll tell them what I know. And I think it's just, yeah, hunters and trail runners and hikers should conversate more, because they have a lot more in common than you think that they would. And so that was kind of my some of the hunting stuff, some things I want to get out, I wanted to get out there. I could do another thing. I kind of want to talk about, where do deer live, but maybe that's for another podcast, because that's a whole nother thing. Like, I could talk about a lot of the hunting stuff for a long time, but I think we're gonna cut it there today. Thanks for tuning in. Episode 20. I'm excited. Like I said, we got another guest coming on soon. I'm in the guests are in the works. More content is in the works. is the middle of winter, but I'm still coming at you. I'm still in the truck bed, braving it out. And we're still doing it. So if you get out this weekend, stay warm. If not, grind indoors. Rip the podcast. We'll plug at the end. Hopefully you rip the podcast. If you listen to this on a treadmill or something, you just finished an indoor workout. Hats off. Like, thank you for listening. Nice you got after it on the treadmill. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys. We'll see you next week. Peace. Um, Aside from being able to recover more. Oops, sorry. This might be a double take cut that I actually have to cut out. What am I trying to say? Aside from aside honestly, this would be funny to kind of leave in. I'm not gonna say anything. I want to start putting bloopers in at the end of these podcasts potentially. This is not what I want. Okay, so here we go. Okay.